What's up, everybody? It's Matt Johnson. We are back with another episode of the Team Building Podcast, and the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Cohn, has returned to his home and native land and is back is back with us today. We have no guest, so Jeff, you and I are going to talk about how to think and play bigger from a few different angles. We've got some fun stuff to get into, and we're going to riff a little bit and just have fun because you're back in town. We haven't talked to each other in a while, probably since the Team Building Summit in May, and you've got a bunch of stuff that you've been doing since then. So first of all, man, what's up?
Hey, Matt, what's going on, man? And all everybody listening live and those listening to the recording. This is going to be a unique episode. Everyone's always focused on building their business, building their business, building their business. Today, we're going to talk about obviously setting big goals. So we play big in the business realm, but also how we take a step back from building the business and actually enjoy the freedom we've created by implementing the CEO strategy. So I just came back from a 26-day trip to South Africa. Spent 2 weeks in Cape Town, 3 days in Zimbabwe and Zambia up at Victoria Falls, and then we ended the trip with a safari at Kruger National Park. I took my family, 3 kids, 12, 10, and 8. It was a dream trip. We saw the Big Five. We saw all sorts of crazy stuff. We got to see lions eating a baby giraffe, which was pretty exciting. That's one of the animals they munch on, I guess. So we saw all sorts of stuff, man, and it was just a bucket list trip for us. Our goal is every year to take the kids to a new country until they've all graduated and left our house. So this was one of the first big trips like this that we've taken together.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a dream trip. So tell me about what it was like, to be gone for essentially 3.5 weeks. You've got $1 million business running back home.
Yeah, I've got $5 million businesses running, but the big thing for me is I have direct reports in all the businesses that run the businesses. If there's fires, they can reach me via email. I didn't have cell phone the whole trip or for part of the trip, which was kind of awesome. But I always had access to the internet, so when I'd go back to our lodge or back to our condo, I could link up, and I would check email every day for about 20 minutes. When you're gone that long, you actually want to work a little bit, to keep your toes wet. I did, just because I have fun working, at least, not in the weeds, but I have fun with the big picture stuff. But I've created a pattern of going on these long trips, so the people that I work with are used to that. We've gone to Hawaii on 4 separate occasions, all 3 weeks or longer. One of the trips was 5 weeks. We did Costa Rica for 5 weeks. And then, as you know, I travel a lot. Last year, I counted the nights. I was gone about 100 nights. In 2017, half of those were work related, half of those were personal. But one of the things I've noticed, Matt, and we talked a little off air about this, is those that play big a lot of times find ways to intertwine work with pleasure. So I went out to Denver as an example. I can't even remember the reason why. It's been about a month and a half or so ago. And I decided I'd do a team leader mastermind while in Denver, in addition to the trip that I was taking. And that's something I enjoy masterminding with people that, are highly successful, highly motivated like myself. So I just got back last week. I'm leaving tomorrow for 4 days. We're going to Miami. And here's a great example. A buddy of mine just wanted to get away and unwind. And I was like, hey, while we're in Miami, let's find out if we have any contacts there that play big. And I have a coaching client, Carl Fong Yu, who's awesome, good friend of mine. He and his broker own a boat. We're going to jump on the boat Friday and take it to Key West, Key Largo, I guess, part of the Florida Keys. And that's pretty awesome. But while doing that, we actually came in contact with a gentleman in Delray. I can't think of his name right now, but he's one of the top flippers in Florida. He flips property. And so we invited him and his business partner to get on the boat with us. So not only is it pleasure and are we going to have some fun and, jack around, et cetera, we're also going to be able to talk business and be obviously in one of the most beautiful places in the United States while we're doing it.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and we've got a bunch of people watching with us. Andrew Ford, Jerry, Manny, Adam Bailey, what's up? Stephen Shar, Mike Holbrook, Paul Franklin. Guys, get to work. What's going on, guys? Just make sure you've got this on the background while you're doing something. Let's go here. But anyway, so just want to thank everybody for watching live. And yeah, so what I take away from that, there's a couple things. Obviously, you've got great systems in place, great people running the systems that allow you to do that. You're available. You allow yourself to be leveraged to the point where if there's anything really major that comes up that needs to be escalated to the point where it gets to you, like you're available for a limited amount of time per day. And most of the stuff by now, all the kinks have been worked out to the point that that's pretty few and far between. Like the systems are running and they're, people are executing on what they have to do. And then as far as thinking big, man, there's a lot to go into there. But I think one of the one of the differences between really successful entrepreneurs that I've noticed, and you're like this, is that work is not a thing that, like something that you show up to an office and do. It's just your life. And so it's it's not an either or choice, right? So it's like, well, we're going to go to Florida. Is it business or pleasure? Usually the answer is both, right? It's not like it's not like you're distracting your focus. You're just maximizing the opportunities to live a big lifestyle. And I think that's one of the things, like, hey, if you're going to go through, the pain, the blood, sweat, tears to build a 7 or 8 figure business, man, you have to disconnect and unplug and take the time to enjoy it and celebrate the success sometimes.
Yeah. If the thing you're doing is something that you're wanting to walk away from every day, you only can handle doing it for 5 or 6 hours and then you don't want to think about it, you're doing the wrong thing. I use the analogy of, what if you won $10 million or $100 million? How do you think you'd spend your time? I guarantee you'd try to align with other people worth $10 million or $100 million and trade ideas on where to invest your money, what businesses to acquire, what investments to invest in. You'd be visiting probably some of the businesses that you're acquiring. It would be part of your life. Even though, I think a lot of people just don't get excited about getting into the weeds. You can hire the people to get into the weeds. And to your point, I've been able to leverage, who is it? Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad said, you don't have to be the best at anything, just hire the best at everything. And that's obviously been one of the goals of mine, is to find the best people in every business. One of the things you brought up off air, which I think is very applicable to this topic, is a lot of people get focused in one thing and have a lot of success. And then as they start to step out of the day-to-day grind, they decide to take on a completely new venture. So let's say it's a residential real estate team leader who decides to start a car wash. Whatever the example is, I have a friend of mine that was wanting to start a car wash, totally different business. I think that there's a lot to be said for choosing to leverage into other businesses that are synergistic with the business that helped you become successful. There's a lot of reasons why, but the number one to me is that you're not going to be as distracted trying to learn a completely new industry.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about supposed synergies. A lot of synergies never materialize, and anybody that's into the business or follows business acquisitions and mergers and stuff like that can tell you that. But when we talk about synergy, like in this context, so the businesses that you have, for the most part, are driven and are tied to the success of your core team, right? So ERS itself is a business stacked on top of the knowledge and the experience that you've gained from running the team. The other businesses that you have, the auxiliary businesses that leverage, title company, for example, insurance, stuff like that, is directly leveraged off of the team. Then you've got an
flipping business.
Yeah, flipping company.
Yeah.
Tom Caffarella is a good example of this, where he has a brokerage, he has 100 and some agents, but everything is like the thing that plows both of those things forward and that shares and leverages everything is there's one lead generation system that plows forward in the marketplace and grows both of his businesses. It generates all the investment opportunities, and then the agents that he has on his team leverage the investing opportunities, right? So he's able to focus on one thing. Like we generate motivated seller leads, right? And everything else, like as long as that one thing happens, like all good things happen. I think there's a lot of great value in, look, if you're going to, if once you get into the CEO model of your real estate team, don't go start something wildly different. Start something that is a profit maximizer to what you're already doing, so that you can continue pushing the core business forward, and you push one big rock up one big hill and everything else follows behind it.
Yep, totally agree. I read a book probably 15 years ago called Multiple Streams of Income, and it addresses this very point. They make a counterpoint that if you have all of your businesses in the same business, that you run the risk that if your core business starts to fail, then all of those other businesses fail. But I kind of align better with what Warren Buffett said, which is that you can put all of your eggs in one basket. You just have to watch that basket. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not nervous at all.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and you're in one of the oldest, most secure businesses of all time. We're not talking about putting all of your eggs in the basket of I'm trying to develop the latest social app that monetizes attention. Something that could literally be here
right.
today and gone tomorrow.
Right.
This isn't.
And I know our industry. And our industry is going to adapt. It's going to change just like every industry. For anyone that hasn't read the book, Who Moved the Cheese? It's a great book, which, kind of creates this idea that all the mice keep coming back to the same chunk of cheese until it's gone. Half the mice move on. The other half keep going back to the same place. And obviously they starve to death. They never choose to move. One of the cool things about playing big, Matt, is that people that play big are constantly talking to other people that play big. And so we always are on the forefront of shift. Every time something changes on the east or west, north or south coast, I hear about it within the days of it taking place, instead of finding out 3 years later in a book. And that's one thing I want to talk about from a playing big standpoint. Education's a huge component of that. You had mentioned Adam Bailey is one of the people that was watching live. I don't know if he's still here. He's a friend of mine, and I've learned a lot from Adam. I know he runs I believe he continues to run a call center service that helps people be more efficient with their outbound call teams. When I met him, he was with Mike Gerbic in Wichita, Kansas, which is only 5 hours from here, practically a neighbor of ours, because Omaha is so spread out from so many large cities. But one of the things that I had recognized with Adam and his group, they were doing over 1,000 units a year, and they had a huge internal sales team. And so we decided we'd reach out to them. We had an affiliation through Boomtown. We were both Boomtown clients, and they opened their doors and allowed us to come and learn. And I've done that in 50 different markets, 50, over the course of the last 7 years, and traded ideas with other top people. And, Adam and Mike were willing to open their doors to us and allow us to come in, and we traded ideas as well. And I would never be where I am today if it weren't for bigger thinkers than me opening their doors and being able to share with me, even though there was nothing necessarily intrinsically beneficial to them on the front end or monetarily beneficial. It was more of just being authentic and having that abundance mindset of allowing us to come over. And it's been amazing now looking back at all these people that have opened the doors and how I now can help them. I have people who had opened their doors to me years ago that are now coaching clients of mine, or that we've gotten on our podcast, or they've had me on their podcast. But it's pretty amazing just to have that mindset. And that is definitely one main component I've seen of people that play big is there's nothing to hide. We know we play at such a big level. It's like a professional athlete. They're not scared to share what their workout is because it's 6 hours long. So, they're not scared to say they take 1,000. You want to be a professional basketball player, take 1,000 free throw shots a day. And everyone's like, no, thank you.
Yes,
that's kind of what it's like. You play big like us. Like right true. Now, in our flipping business, Clint and I spend $15,000 a month on mailers. I tell the average person that takes me to lunch, they want to learn how I'm acquiring 5 properties, actually about 10 properties a month right now, 30% below market. And I say I'm spending $15,000 a month on that. And then they say, well, I can't do that. And I say, well, I also spend $10,000 a month on AdWords. I also have a team of 40 agents. Like, I just have so many things going that it's impossible, really, for someone else to replicate what we've built. And so I'm not scared to share it.
Not right out of the gate. You've been stacking systems for the last 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So
I was
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, we've got Kurt Francis watching. Kurt just joined us and is watching. And Kurt said something really, really excellent when I was on a call with him a couple weeks ago. He uncovered some research, I think, from a gentleman at Harvard who essentially the conclusion of the research was, and he's got all the scientific data to back it up. The scientist says essentially, look, 90 to 95% of all of our success and or failure in life is directly attributed to the relationships, the key relationships in our lives, the people that we directly surround ourselves with. 90 to 95% of the results in our life directly go back to who we surround ourselves with. Isn't that crazy?
I love it. And I totally agree with that. They say from a net worth standpoint that your net worth will be the average of your 5 closest friends' net worth. Yeah. Your net worth will be the average of your 5 closest friends' net worth. A person I'm having lunch with today, he's one of the presidents of the oldest real estate company in the country, Mike Riedman. He and I are grabbing sushi right after this podcast. And he told me the first time I ever met with him, I said, hey, Mike, I'm kind of stuck in the lower price point, 150 to 200 range. What would you recommend to help me get up to like the $500,000 or $600,000 price point? And this is in Omaha 10 years ago. He said, Jeff, you need to move into a $500,000 house. And it really struck me. I'm like, really? You think that's all it takes? He goes, if you live in a $500,000 house, your kids will play with $500,000 house owners. Your kids will be part of little league or whatever with $500,000 owners. You'll go to church with $500,000 owners. He said it'll become your new network, your new norm, and they'll look at you as normal as well because you live in a house like theirs. And I thought I almost didn't believe it. And at the time, I lived in a studio apartment probably at that time, and it is 100% true. Your average sales price will typically be reflective of the average price of the property you live in, and it's been amazing just in the last 12 months since I've moved into a very nice property. I built a nice home in Omaha. I've had the most amount of $1 million listings come to me just in the last 12 months while living in this house. And it's very interesting that people that own $1 million properties and are millionaires feel more comfortable working with other people that own $1 million houses and are millionaires.
Yes, 100%. And the same applies going back to education. The phenomenon of like trying to sell coaching when you haven't invested in coaching yourself, like that kind of phenomenon manifests itself in a lot of different places. And education is definitely one of them. So if you're not willing to invest in yourself and you're not willing to invest in upgrading your network and your relationships, then it's going to be tough to really get. I mean, there's a certain amount of education you can get from books. There's a certain amount of education you can get from a mentoring, like a true mentor relationship of somebody mentoring you from the top down, reaching their arms down to help pull you up. But there's a lot to be said for having what one of my clients would call proximity mentors, which are people that are in our world that are not officially mentors or coaches of ours. We're not exchanging money with them to coach us, but they are at the next level. And they hang out with us for whatever reason, but just the process of being around and being in their proximity causes us to play bigger, think bigger, and raise our game. And which is, I mean, you're in the process of doing that right now.
I have so many proximity mentors, and it's interesting because I am also the proximity mentor to a lot of individuals. I can't handle, like, let's use a sports analogy. I like to play squash. I play twice a week. It's like racquetball. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. It's probably super nerdy, but I absolutely love it. So I play like 4 hours a week. I do not want to play with someone who I continually beat. I only want to play with people that are continually beating me. I don't want to just get beat down. I want to be able to score a little bit, but I don't want to go show up and just constantly be dominating. But when you look at those proximity mentorship relationships, a lot of people that aren't playing big yet are fearful that they don't have value to offer. Let's say when you're a brand new agent, and now you're hanging out with the top agent in your city, what do you have to offer them? There's a lot you offer us, and I'll take myself as an example of now being the bigger mentor. I love to see the passion that a new person shows up with. And so when I meet with somebody that's worth 10 times what I'm worth, I want to bring them the things that are important to me. So passion, strategy, my youthfulness. I'm 36, which to some is old and to some is young. I'm really kind of that middle age right now. But a lot of the people I associate with are in their 50s and 60s, and they like to have that youthfulness that I bring. So you have to be sure you're giving that person something, even though you're probably not filling them with ideas on how to build their business. There's got to be another component of value that you're bringing to that relationship.
Well, and yes, so energy, youthfulness, and here's the other thing about the mentor relationship, and there's a great book on this called Mastery by Robert Greene, which is amazing. But he talks about, I think it's in that book, he talks about, just what like the mentoring relationship and what the student brings to the mentor, right? It's in the right circumstance, it's extremely symbiotic and beneficial to both sides, because what the mentor gets out of it isn't just your youthfulness and your energy and stuff like that. It's also your willingness to take the advice that they give you, run with it, implement it, come back to them and say, here's the results that I got. What's next? And a true mentor loves to see that.
If I share my advice with someone, they just got into the business, and I said, hey, make 100 phone calls a day for 5 days a week for the next month, and then let's have lunch again, and I want to hear how you did. If I meet with them again and they didn't do it, I'm never meeting with them again. Because to me, my advice is falling on deaf ears. It's not worth it to me. That same rule, knowing that that's how I feel, if someone else makes a recommendation to me and I'm not willing to at least beta test it and run with it and then return and report, why should they ever give me advice again? And you'll find if you have somebody that plays big, that has given you advice in the past, and you can tell they're just kind of not paying attention to you anymore, it's because they don't believe in you. They don't believe you're going to take it to the next level. You're going to do the things necessary to play at a big level. And a lot of times people don't want to associate with losers. And people that aren't willing to take it to the next step are losers. They're choosing to lose at life. And that sounds harsh, but I'm sorry to anyone that thinks that's harsh. That's just because you don't play big. So I love athletics. It applies, right? Like I read this book by Jocko Willink. Jocko's awesome. He wrote the book Extreme Ownership, and then had a follow-up book to that. I can't remember what it's called, But one of the things he said in that follow-up book, he trained as a Navy SEAL for a very long time. And he said during his training, while he was going through that pain and that process of the trainings and the rigorous, even once they've passed buds, they still do all sorts of craziness. He said he would always think about his enemy, whoever that enemy was going to be, and he would vision that enemy training as well at the same time. And in his mind, he thought, if I can train harder, longer, smarter, better than my enemy, then when I face the enemy on the battlefield, I will overcome. I will, defeat him. And so I know that sounds a little intense, but when we think about our enemies as our competition, are we training ourselves more than them? Are we getting enough relaxation time? Are we going out and masterminding with people? Are we deserving of that number one status in our marketplace or in our brokerage? I think a lot of times the people that are in certain positions of success aren't necessarily deserving of it. They're simply there because they've been at it maybe 20 or 30 years longer than some of the other people. So if they want to continue to hold that position, they need to be willing to play big when it comes to educating themselves. Matt, I know education's big for you. I think it'd be awesome to share with the audience, what are some of the top strategies you've seen people that play big implement and you yourself have implemented in terms of educating yourself?
Well, it's funny because I was literally just talking with this yesterday with a couple of guys who've been on this very podcast before, Scott Tremblay and Jeremy Jenks. So we're talking about just the kind of where the trends are going. And right now, things are like, if you're an entrepreneur, one of the biggest things is implementation. And there's a lot of content out there, and there's a lot of improvements that we could make to our business. And a lot of times those improvements are probably found in a book. The information is not necessarily the hardest thing to acquire. In fact, if you have proximity mentors, you might already know somebody that's doing the things that you want to do. So it's not the information that's the problem, it's the implementation. And so a lot of the things that are, like, especially with online entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, and stuff like that, it's moving to kind of your model, Jeff, of like, hey, show up, just pay to come to the workshop, show up, you're going to be here for 8, 9, 10 hours, then we're going to mastermind afterwards. And smart entrepreneurs who are super busy, super successful, and understand how to implement, they know the value of paying to show up in an event that will force them to absorb the content. And then because they've forked out the money, it will also force them to implement. And I literally just ran across a little anecdote of this in Russell Brunson's new book that he just put out. I downloaded it yesterday. And he mentioned that when he wanted to implement some big change in Google AdWords and SEO, okay, he brings out first of all, he finds the best person in his network that he knows how to do it. It's not the information that was the problem, it was the implementation. So he flies the guy out, pays $25,000 to fly him to their headquarters in Idaho, and says, look, this is not only we're going to pay you to fly here, we're going to do everything you say. He hired a person to implement what he knew the guy was going to tell him to do. And then they prepared for that guy coming in by having, like, looking at all the things that they already knew they needed to implement that had been putting off in preparation for that guy coming in. And so they had all the pieces lined up so that they put out the money, they brought somebody in, and they forced themselves to do it. And I think people that are, like, if you're in our position, you understand the value of exchanging the money to ensure that you get the result, even when the only thing that's been separating you from the result is you just procrastinating. There's value in paying the money to eliminate your own procrastination.
Well, and using actual analytics to back up exactly what you're saying, we've watched a pattern over the last 5 years as we've hosted the team building workshops, which, by the way, we have 2 coming up. I'll have to plug that really quick. August 13th and October 22nd are our next 2 that we're opening up to the public. We've been inundated with requests from brokerages to have us fly out. It's $10,000 if you're a broker owner or team leader and you want to fly our entire workshop to your city. It doesn't have to just be for your people. You can open it up as a recruiting event, make it a huge event in your city, but we have a few of those coming up as well. But October 22nd and August 13th, that's $3,000 to attend those workshops. You can bring a guest, and you get access to our entire Google Drive, all of our intellectual property. But what I was saying was we found a direct correlation with those that attend that workshop and then sign up for our Team Leader live stream product, which is essentially the implementation component of everything we teach at the workshop. Those individuals seem to have a lot more success a lot faster than those that come to the workshop, learn all of the information, go home, and just get stuck back in their old ways. People
Yeah.
know exactly what they need to do. There's people listening right now going, yeah, for 5 years I've known I needed to do A, B, C in my business to take it to the next level. But the excuse as to why they didn't do it was that they didn't have the bandwidth, they didn't have the money, they didn't have the staff, they didn't have the right person. There's always a reason. The true reason is it hasn't been a focus. It hasn't been something that they've focused on. And it's very, very challenging. I know it from personal experience going from Rainmaker agent to stepping away and starting to focus on building a business that eventually over time would allow me to step out of the service, the day-to-day servicing of the deals. You have two jobs. You're an agent and you're a business owner at the same time. That's very hard. That's a tough grind to be a part of. And you want to get out of that grind as quick as possible, get to the CEO role so all of your time and energy can just be focused on the business. All right, so playing big. Obviously, podcasts are huge. This podcast, I know we get a ton of great feedback. It's one of the best. For anyone listening that hasn't left us a review yet, go out to iTunes, please, and give us a 5-star review and congratulate us for whatever piece of information we've been able to offer to you or value add we've brought to you. I think we have over 50 testimonials on there right now. I'd like to see us over 100 by the end of 2018. I know for me, Matt, it's been interviewing people on the podcast that's brought me a ton of value. So instead of going out physically and visiting offices, I now get top agents from all over the country every single week. I get to chat with them off air for 10 minutes, then have an hour on air. But most importantly, I then have their cell phone number. And anytime the topic we spoke on that I know they're experts at, I have a question on, I have a person in the weeds, in the field, who's doing it that I can call and ask them their opinion. And to me, there's nothing as valuable as that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because you don't have to. I think one of the core lessons I've learned just in business over the last few years and watching people that are far more successful than I is that, man, if you can just master just a couple of things, you don't have to master everything. There's people out there that are masters of everything. All you have to do is just master a couple of things, get really good and really go deep on those strengths and learn how to monetize those couple of things that you do really, really well. And all the rest of the stuff you can hire. You can rent out space in other people's brains, just like, some of us rent out space in Frank's brain, Frank from Buyer Marketing, right? So he's a client, he's a friend, he's whatever, right? So we lean on him for, his opinion on marketing strategy or whatever. So we rent space in his brain. You can rent space in just about any expert's brain that you want to, provided you have some money to exchange or there's some other value exchange. And the biggest hurdle that most people have, and a lot of people in our audience have already overcome this, is figuring out the one thing, the first thing to master, to monetize. And then once you do that, then there's the trap. You've already figured out now how to monetize your skills and how to turn that into a real legit income stream. That confidence of mastering something can lead you to believe, great, the next step is to repeat that cycle, right? I'm going to go and I'm going to master this other thing. But usually the answer is focus, stay in your lane, do that, keep getting better at that one thing, and then hire the other pieces. Bring in the knowledge that you need, bring in the specialists and lean on the people in your network. Let them do what they do best, and then just help them let them help you build the systems in your business that will supplement and add, and you just keep on doing what you're really, really good at and keep on honing those skills and making them more valuable.
Yep. Nope. I think you're 100% right. I totally agree with that. I think a lot of people have the misconception that those that play big have everything figured out, run everything perfectly, don't have any drama, have perfect marriages, perfect health, perfect religion, perfect spirituality, perfect meditation. And the truth is that it's probably the complete opposite of that. It's kind
Whenever
of like
I think of Jeff, I think of you serenely meditating over your pond, like literally levitating over your pond in the back of your home.
I'm floating right now, right?
Exactly.
I think it kind of goes back to that old adage where you once you solve one problem, what is it? You solve a problem and you create 10 more, something like that. And that's kind of what I'm.
If you solve it well, yes, that's the idea.
If you solve it well,
if you really want to solve the problem, you don't just barely solve it. You obliterate it to the point where it creates all sorts of new problems because you solve the problem so well, which is an interesting little mental mind shift.
So as we get bigger, a lot of times people will say also the thing that got you to where you are today isn't necessarily the thing that is going to get you to where you want to be tomorrow. And the people that play big are constantly running into these barriers where, going back to your point, yes, you want to look at the one thing that you focused on that helped you get to where you are, but the 2x, 5x, 10x, that one thing, you probably don't do the same activities. And a great point would be if you're great with outbound prospecting, let's say you made 4 hours of calls a day. The most I've ever heard of someone is 3 hours. Let's say you're 4 hours of calls every single day, 5 days a week. You kill it. You make $500,000 a year with the deals you're servicing. Obviously, you can't 10x that yourself. You personally don't have the bandwidth. And so that's where you have to hire a virtual assistant. Well, that's a whole new world. A virtual assistant or internal sales team. Now you're managing other people. You're paying them. You're making sure they do a good job. You're making sure they don't say something that's illegal. Totally different than just you relying on yourself to make those calls. And so you have to be willing to take that risk, which is your time and the money that you're going to put into that to try to make that work better than if it were just you making those calls.
Yeah, I agreed. And I think where I was just telling somebody this the other day, and I accidentally phrased it in a way that I really like. So hopefully I can recapture it. So there's the ladder of kind of where real money is made. So the initial money that we make is in leading ourselves, right? Getting ourselves to perform, getting ourselves to hit our own goals. Then we get into leading others. And of course, they're, for the most part, they're lower level people. Initially, those are people that are just supporting us doing what we do. Mm-hmm. The real money is in leading leaders. So the people that make the most money in the world are the people that know how to lead other leaders. And so that's a skill set that we can all work on developing. And it starts with just leading somebody. So if you're a high producing agent right now and you're producing without somebody, or let's just say you're producing with a transaction coordinator who their only role is just to take it from contract to close, there's obviously other people you could be leading, and getting started with that process right, like literally as soon as humanly possible, is extremely valuable. Even if you don't see the immediate benefit in your business, the growth process, because I'm dealing with this with a couple of staff members myself, they now have people underneath them. And so I'm having to teach them how to lead other people and watching them go through the growing pains that I went through 2 years ago when I hired them. And the things that it's done for me, I can't even express how much it's changed me. And it increased my capacity to attract wealth and build a business that's more stable, more recession proof. Like it's literally changed my life. And it all started with just hiring virtual staff initially, and then now I'm in the phase of like having to lead people who are leading other people. It is the most valuable skill set. I cannot overexpress how important it is that not to stop at that point where you have that challenge of leading other leaders, because that's where the real money is.
Yep. Nope. I think you're 100% right. We took this huge shift about 2 years ago where we started training and teaching and encouraging our best agents to become leaders, to start their own real estate teams. And for us, I really saw it as the greatest thing I could give them was showing them how to exit their business. How many brokers in this country today would go to their sales force and say, you guys, really, you should consider stop selling real estate and start focusing on building a business where you leverage yourself, start training others. I've never heard someone talk about that. I think Gary Keller would be one thought leader that talks about seventh level where you step out. But other than him, I haven't really heard anyone really speaking to that. I see a lot of team leaders wanting to build teams, and I always ask them, how are you helping your agents step out of the day-to-day grind? And everyone just kind of looks at me like, what are you talking about? That's how I make my money. So I'm totally in line with you, Matt, because the next level to attract talent and retain talent is giving them the ability to be just like you. The fear and challenge, I think, as leaders that we experience is that for us to be able to retain that top person, even you within your organization pursuing results as you hire people and then they hire people under them, what keeps these individuals from leaving us and going and starting a sister company that competes directly with us? And that's the scarcity mindset. That's why brokers don't teach agents, in my opinion, to be able to do it on their own, run the business on their own. So there has to be that value add component. Of course, I'm a big believer in all the value pieces that I offer to my team leads. I haven't lost a team leader that has grown within my organization over the last 7 years. Not one has left my team. And they're here for myriad of reasons, but accountability, systems, lead gen, lead conversion, best practices, training, onboarding. And there's so many things that when they recruit, those people just plug into my team, and so they choose to stay with us. Net, they make more money in less time with less energy being with me than trying to go off and recreate it on their own. So as those listening think about how this applies to whatever the business is that they run, you have to continually grow yourself to be able to be a leader that can offer value to those that are climbing next to you. And you want people to do better. You want to be a leader that wants to see their people have success, but you have to continue to be successful as well so that you can continue to offer value to them. And at the point where you stop offering value and growing personally, those individuals will see that, and you're going to lose some of your talent.
Yeah. Yep. So getting back to the theme of the show, that's why it's important for us as leaders to continue to play and think bigger ourselves and keep on plowing forward, keep on pushing forward in our own lives and developing every aspect of ourselves. That's part of what helps, it helps our people to see that, and it motivates them to come along behind us and to make sure that we keep on raising the ceiling on our own capacity to be a better leader to them. So I love that. So that goes back to the theme of the show as far as thinking and playing bigger. So we got some heavy hitters that have watched and dipped in and out. Jeff Coates, Damon Gutierrez, and Dirk Zeller. What is going on, guys? We appreciate you guys watching. And we are essentially live at the same time here, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central every Wednesday. So, guys, make sure to keep an eye out. First, turn on the notifications on the Elite Real Estate Systems Facebook page. You can also see it here on my Facebook profile. And make sure that you are tuning in so that you can get your questions answered and things like that when we have guests on the show. So we talked about the workshops. You guys can go out to eliterealestatesystems.com and check out all the information on that. Jeff, you want to say just a quick word about live stream?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had talked about after the workshop, a lot of people need help with the day-to-day grind, the implementation, training, accountability calls, et cetera. And so we created a product called Elite Real Estate Systems Live Stream, where we put a $50,000 studio in our office. We live stream all of my team's agent trainings every Wednesday and Friday. Wednesdays are topical. They're 1 hour long. Fridays are dialogue training. And then we also offer a 1 hour high-level team leader call every week. It's like a private podcast. All three of those calls are interactive. You can instant message, ask questions, engage, and they're all recorded. For the team leader product, it's $497 a month. So ultimately, you get 12 hours of content, 4 hours geared towards the team lead, 8 hours geared towards your agents, and then you also get a weekly accountability call with a coach who's running a real estate team right now, who's having success right now, who's probably a year or two ahead of where you're at in units and volume. And all of this for $497 a month. There's tons of perks if you're a client of ours. We have affiliate relationships with a lot of different vendors that will also give you discounts on their products. So to learn more about it, go check out some example videos, eliterealestatesystems.com, click on live stream.
Cool. All right, and then for the podcast itself, you mentioned leaving a fantastic 5-star rating and review on iTunes. That's the best place to do it. You can also do it from Apple Podcasts if you're an iPhone user. If you're on Android, go to Stitcher. You can subscribe to the show there. You can also go to YouTube, catch the video versions there. So basically, any platform you want, we are there with the show. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and share, and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thinking big, guys, and it can be applicable in any area of your life. I think this was a great call. I think it's important for all of us to be thinking more on this, and you can go as big as you want to go. It's all about what you want to believe in and aligning with those right people to help you get there. There's no way any of us can do this on our own. That's the whole point of the podcast. It's always going to be a continual wealth of sharing and an abundance mindset. So thank you to everyone that's allowed me and Matt to visit them, podcast with them, mastermind with them. There's no way I could ever have gotten to where I am today without those people, and there's no way I would ever get to where I want to go tomorrow without those people and new people that I'll be introduced to. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and guys, if you wanna level up your network and you want to connect directly with Jeff, message me and I will give you Jeff's personal cell phone. And so I'll leave everyone with that.
Works for me. Works for me. Cool.
All right, guys.
Thanks you guys. Appreciate it. It was a great one.